Marcus Chen's doctoral thesis lay crumpled in the trash. Red ink bleeding through every page like wounds. Rejected stamped across the cover. 6 years of work destroyed by Professor Hartley's pen. The security footage showed Marcus entering the library at 1:47 a.m. What it didn't show was who else was already inside. Detective Ray Morrison stood in the Whitman University Library, surrounded by the smell of old books and fresh blood. 3 floors of knowledge, millions of pages, and somewhere among them, a killer's secret. The body of Professor Edmund Hartley, 68 years old, Department Chair of Classical Literature, lay between rows K12 and K13 in the restricted archives section. A knife protruded from his back, precisely between the 3rd and 4th ribs. Professional, almost surgical. Time of death, Morrison asked the medical examiner. Between 2 and 3 a.m. Security footage has him entering at 1:55 a.m. Used his keycard. For the restricted section, Morrison studied the scene. Hartley lay face down, one arm stretched forward, fingers clutching a torn page from an old book. Blood had pooled beneath him, seeping into the 100-year-old carpet. The knife was standard, the kind used in the library's restoration room for cutting leather and trimming pages, available to any staff member. "Where's our prime suspect?" Morrison asked his partner, Detective Jean across. Interview room 2. Marcus Chen, 28. Doctoral candidate. Hartley rejected his thesis yesterday afternoon. 6 years down the drain. Security shows him entering the main library at 1:47 a.m., leaving at 2:15 a.m. Morrison nodded. It seemed straightforward. Angry student, devastating rejection, crime of passion. But something bothered him about the scene, the precision of the wound, the location, deep in the restricted archives where few had access, and that torn page in Hartley's hand. Marcus Chen looked like he hadn't slept in days. Bloodshot eyes, trembling hands, the hollow look of someone whose world had collapsed. He sat hunched in the metal chair, staring at his rejected thesis on the table between them. 6 years, Marcus said before Morrison could speak. 6 years of my life. Do you know what that means? Every birthday missed, every relationship sacrificed, every penny saved spent on research. You were angry, Morrison observed, furious. Hartley didn't just reject it. He humiliated me, called it pedestrian, lacking scholarly merit, in front of the entire committee. Marcus's hands clenched. But I didn't kill him. You were in the library. Main section. 2nd floor. You can check the cameras. I was researching appeal procedures, trying to find precedent for overturning a committee decision. Marcus laughed, bitterly, still trying to save my academic career while Hartley was dying 1 floor above me. Morrison pulled up the security footage on his tablet. Multiple cameras, different angles. There was Marcus entering at 1:47 a.m., going straight to the 2nd floor. He remained visible in the study area until 2:15 a.m., never once going near the stairs to the 3rd floor archives. Someone else was there, Cross said, studying the footage. Look at this. She pointed to a timestamp, 11:45 p.m., a figure entering the library, Sarah Whitmore, the head librarian. Nothing unusual about that. She often worked late. But she used her keycard for the restricted archives at 11:52 p.m. and never appeared on camera. Again. Morrison frowned. Where's the exit footage? That's the thing. She doesn't exit. Not through any door covered by cameras. They found Sarah Whitmore in her office, a cramped space behind the circulation desk filled with decades of library memorabilia. She was 55, graying hair pulled back in the same bun she'd worn for 20 years. Wearing the same style of cardigan she always wore. The perfect librarian. Terrible thing, she said, hands folded on her desk. Professor Hartley was a fixture. Here, difficult man, but brilliant. You were here late last night, Morrison noted. Inventory in the restricted section. We do it monthly. Check for damaged books, missing items. Her voice was steady, practiced. I finished around 1 a.m., left through the staff exit. The cameras didn't catch you leaving. A pause, barely noticeable. The staff exit camera has been broken for weeks. Maintenance request is still pending. Morrison made a note. Convenient. Did you see Professor Hartley? No. The archives are extensive. 3,000 square feet, easy to miss someone. What about Marcus Chen? Sarah's expression tightened slightly. Poor boy, I heard about his thesis, devastating. But Marcus wouldn't hurt anyone. I've known him for 6 years. Watched him pour his soul into that research. Morrison walked through the library, getting a feel for the space. The main floor buzzed with activity. Students studying, keyboards clicking, whispered conversations. The second floor was quieter, dedicated reading areas and computer labs. But the third floor, the restricted archives, was a different world. Climate-controlled, dimly lit. Rows upon rows of rare books and manuscripts. You needed special permission to enter, a keycard that logged every entry and exit. He found the spot where Hartley died. The blood had been cleaned, but the carpet was still damp. Morrison knelt, studying the shelves. Medieval texts, illuminated manuscripts, books worth more than houses. And there, on shelf K12, a gap, a missing book. Anatomical Studies, 1822. Edition, Sarah Whitmore said when asked. Extremely rare. Worth about $40,000. We noticed it missing during this morning's check. But Morrison had seen the torn page in Hartley's hand from that exact book, which meant the book was there when Hartley died. Someone had taken it after. Back in his office, Morrison spread out the evidence. Photos, footage, timeline. Something wasn't adding up. He picked up the torn page now in an evidence bag. The paper was aged, definitely from the 1822 edition, but there was an ink stain on it. Fresh ink, still slightly smudged. Blue ink, modern, cross, he called. What kind of pens does the library use? She checked her notes. Black, university policy. All official documents in black ink. Morrison examined the page closer. The blue ink had bled through from the other side. He carefully turned the evidence bag. On the reverse, barely visible, someone had written a series of numbers. Not printed, handwritten, recent. Looks like a call number, Cross said, looking over his shoulder. Library classification. They returned to the library. Sarah Whitmore reluctantly led them to the section indicated by the numbers. Ancient history. Lower level of the archives. Dusty shelves rarely visited. Morrison pulled out the book indicated by the call number. University records, 1990 to 2000. Why would someone write this number on a page from an 1822 anatomy text? Morrison wondered aloud. Sarah stood frozen. For the first time, her composure cracked. Morrison opened the records book. Administrative documents, hiring records, degree confirmations. He flipped through until he found what Hartley must have found. A photocopied diploma for Sarah Whitmore, Master's in Library Science, State University of New York. Except the seal was wrong. The signature was wrong. And according to a handwritten note in the margin, in Professor Hartley's distinctive scrawl, the degree was fake. 20 years, Morrison said quietly. You've been head librarian for 20 years with a fake degree. Sarah's shoulders sagged. The perfect librarian facade crumbled. I was qualified. More qualified than anyone. I'd worked in libraries since I was 16. But they required that piece of paper, that expensive piece of paper I couldn't afford. So, you forged it, bought it, from someone who specialized in such things. It was enough to get me hired. And I was good at my job. Excellent. Ask anyone. Her voice gained strength. 20 years of perfect service, organizing, cataloging, helping. Thousands of students. Then Hartley started digging. Why? Budget cuts. The university wanted to merge departments, eliminate positions. Hartley was on the committee. He decided to review everyone's credentials, looking for redundancies. Sarah laughed bitterly. The one man in this university who'd recognize a forged document from 1995. Morrison pieced it together. He confronted you last week. Came to my office with that smug smile. Said he'd keep quiet if I helped him. He wanted access to special collections without logs. Wanted to borrow valuable books without paperwork. The man was selling them, Morrison. Stealing from the university and selling to private collectors. So you agreed to meet him in the archives. Sarah nodded. He said we'd make the first exchange. The anatomy book for his silence. But I knew it wouldn't end. He'd own me forever. She looked at her hands. I spent 20 years building something real on a fake foundation. I couldn't let him tear it down. You took the knife from the restoration room. I knew where the cameras were, how to avoid them. 20 years, you learn every corner, every blind spot. Her voice was steady now, resigned. I waited in K-12. When he came for the book, when he turned his back, the torn page, he grabbed it as he fell. I tried to pull the book away, but the page tore. I panicked, took the book, left through the old service tunnel. It connects to the basement. Camera's been broken there since 2019. Morrison thought about Marcus Chen, sitting in a cell. His life destroyed by Hartley's rejection. About Sarah Whitmore, who'd built a career on a lie but had served the university faithfully for 2 decades. About Professor Hartley, brilliant but corrupt, using his power to destroy others. The blue ink. Morrison said, "You wrote that call number. Why?" Sarah smiled sadly. "I knew you'd find it eventually. I'm a librarian detective. We believe in leaving records, even of our own crimes. That book contains every document about my hiring. I couldn't destroy evidence. It's against everything I believe in." They arrested Sarah Whitmore in her office, surrounded by 20 years of service awards. Thank you letters from students, photos of library fundraisers she'd organized. She went quietly, maintaining the dignity she'd worn like armor for 2 decades. Marcus Chen was released that evening. His thesis was still rejected. His academic career still in ruins, but at least he was free. The university, embarrassed by the scandal, quietly offered to reconsider his work under a new committee. The anatomy book was recovered from Sarah's apartment, carefully preserved despite being evidence of murder, because even in her darkest moment, Sarah Whitmore remained what she'd always been, a librarian who protected books. Professor Hartley was buried with full academic honors. His corruption died with him, the stolen books never recovered, the private collectors never identified. The university revised its hiring practices, but nobody suggested removing Sarah Whitmore's contributions to the library. 20 years of perfect service, built on a lie, ended with a truth written in blood. Morrison stood in the empty archives late that night, thinking about justice and its many forms. Sometimes the guilty party is obvious, the angry student with everything to lose. Sometimes the real killer hides behind decades of respectability. And sometimes, Morrison thought, looking at the gap where the anatomy book had been, sometimes the victim isn't as innocent as they seem. The Whitman University Library still operates. Students still study late into the night. The restricted archives still require keycards. But now there's a new head librarian, one with verified credentials and black pens. And in the university records, if you know where to look, you can find the full story of Sarah Whitmore, hired with a fake degree, served with real dedication, and ended with a murder that revealed everyone's truth. The library's rule of silence remains, but some silences, Morrison knew, speak louder than screams.